So we've talked about AWS VPCs, CloudFormation templates, S3, and backup policies, and even did a little bit of load balancing and scalability in the last AWS Lab walkthrough. Well, today we're going to take a look at logging and alerting with CloudWatch. Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here, back, another CyberInsight video, and we're continuing to go down the path of learning about different types of AWS services and technologies. The purpose of today's video is that we're going to be looking at how to combine and leverage AWS CloudWatch, CloudWatch Metrics, CloudWatch Alarms, and Amazon Simple Notification Service to be able to look for specific types of log events coming in, characterize them, set some thresholds based off of when we want to have alerts sent off for them, and then end up receiving some type of email notification whenever any of those types of events and thresholds are triggered. So I'm going to hop over my browser. As I do that, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that other good stuff. And if you have any questions, make sure you throw those down in the comment section down below. So a quick breakdown of what we're actually going to be doing as far as the steps included here. We're going to be creating an SNS topic. We're going to be creating an email subscription, which is going to be tied back to that particular simple notification service topic. Then we're going to create a log group and configure the log group to end up retaining logs for a certain period of time. We're then going to create a metric filter using and tying back to that particular log group that we created. Then we're going to create a filter pattern that monitors for a specific type of error log that we're looking for. It's important once we do this to actually test to make sure that that pattern that we created will end up matching particular logs that we have. And so I actually have some sample logs that we can throw in there to make sure that that particular filter pattern does in fact match. Once we've done that, we're going to create an alarm using a custom metric filter. We're then going to configure the alarm to evaluate over a certain period of time. And we're going to set a threshold for this particular alarm. This alarm threshold will actually be used to determine whether or not the alarm is actually something that needs to have a notification sent out. Once it's determined that it's necessary to actually send out an alert, we're going to end up tying back this particular alarm to the SNS topic that we ended up creating before, so that whenever the alarm is triggered, it will end up sending off that email alert. So that actually sounds like a lot. It's actually very simple and doesn't take very much time to do, so let's hop right into it. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is create an SNS topic and give it a name. So easy enough to do that. We're just going to go to SNS. And we should actually see that I might already have another one in here. And you can see this default one that I have here. I actually use this for billing alerts, but we're going to create a new one specifically for this walkthrough. So we have a few different types that we can look at here. FIFO, first in, first out. This is when the ordering of the messages is super important. We don't really need to do that. In this case, standard is perfectly fine. And we're going to give this a name. CyberInsight test sounds good to me. And we have some other options that we could enable here if we wanted to. Some encryption. This is a server-side encryption. So for when things are at rest. We have an access policy here. We can actually just leave this to be basic. And the only people that can actually publish this message or can subscribe to this topic is the topic owner. There's a delivery retry. This is what ends up happening whenever there's any type of failures to deliver to endpoints. We don't really need to worry about modifying this. The default is fine. We could do some delivery status logging if we wanted to change any of this. We don't really need to mess with that. Can leave that. So pretty much, if we wanted to add some tags, we could do that too. But in essence, just basically setting this up, we just are going to select the standard option and give it a name. All right, so now that we have this topic created, we can actually go ahead and create a subscription for it. So we could click on subscriptions, or we could actually just click this create subscription button right here. And here is the topic ARN that's given to it, and then protocol of what we want to do. We're going to be sending this via email. And then the email that we want to have this sent to. Test at CyberInsight.tech. And the subscription filter policy, we don't really need to deal with either of these. And we can see that this is created, but what it actually will do is be waiting for a confirmation. So it actually will send an email to your email address that you associated with that. So we're going to see email come in asking us to confirm the subscription. We go ahead and click on that. And once we do that, then the service should show up as confirmed. Once you hit the confirm subscription, you'll also get redirected to this web page here that shows that your subscription is in fact confirmed. And we can see here that we do see the in fact confirmed status. So we've created the SNS topic, we've created the subscription that will point back to the email address that we're sending the alerts to. The next thing we need to do is create a log group and configure the log group to retain logs for a certain period of time. At this point, we're actually going to be moving over to CloudWatch. And you see here, I actually already have one alarm set up. As I mentioned before, this is actually for my billing alarm. I have this set up to look for any type of charges that go above a certain amount. In this case, it's just $10 a month. So we're going to go ahead and create that log group. Underneath logs, we go log group, create log group, give it a name. We'll go CyberInsight test LG. And we can set a retention here for how long we want to keep these logs in here. We could go a year, we could go a week, we go a month. Let's just go a month. We could add some tags if we wanted to, but we don't need to for this case. And there we go, we have our new log group. So next we're going to be creating a metric filter that we're going to be using within our log group to look for specific types of log messages that we're interested in that would make us want to generate an alert. So to do that, we're going to go back to log groups. We're going to select the particular log group that we just created, and under actions, we're going to go create metric filter. So we select here. Underneath actions, we have a whole bunch of different stuff, and we're going to create metric filter. Now, it gives us some different things that we could match on. We could match on keywords. We could match, like in this case, it's looking for 400 level HTTP responses. That's simple enough. That's what we're going to do, is actually look for some HTTP codes. So we can go ahead and change this. We can just look for 500 level codes. So instead of 4, we're going to go 5. The asterisk here is going to match anything else after the 5. Test pattern. This is where I'm going to copy in some test logs that I have here. I'm just going to replace these in here. So nothing too crazy. Just some local web logs. Go to index.html. And see some 200 messages in there and some 500 messages. So ideally what we want to do here is just filter on the 500. So when I test this pattern, the only ones that should be provided back are the ones that actually have a status code of 5 something. So of the 6 events that were in the sample log, 4 match. And we can see how that's all parsed out there and match on those 500 status codes. So that works perfect. That should be fine. We can go ahead and hit next. And we're going to give it a filter name. Let's go CyberInsight HTTP 5XX. Metric namespace. And group these together. Let's make this CyberInsight CloudWatch test. Metric name identifies this metric. So this will be HTTP _5XX. So metric value is the value published to the metric name when a filter and pattern match occurs. In this case, that's going to be 1, but the default is going to be 0. So when something comes in and actually matches this, then it will be a metric value of 1. Any logs that don't match this particular filter will be 0. And I think that's good for that. We can hit next. See if I missed anything here. Create metric filter. That should be good. Now, if we click into this, we should actually be able to set up an alarm. We also could set up an alarm over underneath the alarms itself. We could go create alarm here, or we could do it specifically under where we were at under that particular metric. So if we are going to create it under the actual alarms, we can move back here underneath the log group. And then underneath the metric filters that are applied to it, we can click on that and then hit create alarm. So here we can specify the metrics and conditions. Statistic sum is perfectly fine here. Then period, we can set this to look at this however often we want to. So we could set it to 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 minute. We'll go 1 minute. And then a static analysis. So whenever there is something that matches this metric, our threshold for when we want to alert, we can make that be whatever we want to. So let's make that be 4. So we've set our threshold value to 4. So that means in order for this to generate an alarm condition, we need to have over 4 log events come in within the 1 minute period that have the HTTP 500 level code within that log message. Now down here, we have an additional configuration for data points to alarm. This is how many evaluation periods must be breaching in order to actually put this into an alarm state. So if we were to just leave this as 1, then what I said above, as far as we would just need to get above 4 log messages that match this particular filter within 1 period to actually generate or put this into an alarm condition. If we wanted to change this, let's say we wanted to make sure that we were seeing these types of events come in over 3 periods, so 3 minutes, we could change this to 3 out of 3. We could also change this to 2. So then in that case, that means that it would actually go into alarm state if out of every 3 periods, we ended up meeting that threshold in 2 out of those 3 periods. But in this case, we'll just leave it as 3 out of 3. And then the alarm state trigger, we have a few different things here that we can choose from. We're going to actually select an existing SNS topic since we already created that, CyberInsight test. We could add some other options here. We could add some auto scaling if we wanted to do that. So if we had some type of alert ended up coming in, we matched a threshold, and let's say based off of that we wanted to scale out, we can go ahead and attach that to an auto scaling group that we have. Or so we aren't going to do any of that. We're really just trying to generate an alert. Just go CyberInsight HTTP 5XX test. We can review. So we set the threshold to 4. The period is every minute. Data points on this, we added this additional configuration. So in order for this to actually generate and go into an alarm state, we would need to get greater than 4 log messages that match the particular filter that we have, and we need to have that for 3 consecutive 1-minute time periods. Actions is to send a notification. We can go ahead and create the alarm. Okay, now this here is going to show insufficient data because of the fact that I don't have any EC2 instances up that are running any type of web server and are having traffic sent to it to generate these logs. But that doesn't mean that we can't actually test for this to actually work. So I'm going to move over into a VM I have that has connection to AWS, the AWS CLI. There's a particular command that we can run that will allow us to test this particular alarm and make sure that it goes into an alerted state. All right, so let's move over here into this VM. Here's the format of the particular command. So it's AWS CloudWatch set alarm state, and then the alarm name, we have to specify what that is. And then state reason, so we just kind of give a description of why we're doing it. And then state value, we're actually going to set it to alarm. Now the cool thing is when we do this, should end up generating both the email alert, and we'll be able to see it here within the dashboard within CloudWatch. It's worth pointing out that this will actually end up resetting, so there isn't anything you need to do. After this, once it goes through and goes into the next period of time, then as long as there aren't any other log events coming in that would trigger this, then you should be good to go. And let's see, where did we screw up with that? I typed that in incorrectly. That's supposed to be a capital I. Let's give that a try. There we go. Didn't get a negative response back, so we should be good to go. Let's hop back over into the browser. Okay, and then here, if we refresh this, yep, we see that that is actually in an alarm state now. And then we should also end up getting an email alert come in for that as well. Let me go over and take a look at this. And there we go. Just threw up a screenshot of the alert that just came in. You can see the alarm name, the region that we're in, timestamps. You can see the reason for the change. You can see that that was what we put in the command that we used. And if we go and check this again, we should be able to see that that alarm cleared out. There we go. It's back to insufficient data, and you see that the warning symbol over there is no longer red and activated. All right, so that should wrap this up. We covered a whole bunch of different topics here dealing with CloudWatch, SNS topics, different types of alarms and alerting. Just quick recap. So what did we do? We made an SNS topic and named it. We created an email subscription tying it back to that particular SNS topic. We created a log group, and then we configured the log group to retain the logs. I think we did it for like 30 days. Then we created a metric filter and attached that to the log group. We created a filter pattern. Remember, we were looking for particularly 500 level HTTP log messages. Then with that filter, we ended up doing some testing with the dummy log data that I had to make sure that the pattern actually matched correctly. After that, we created an alarm, and we used the custom metric to tie those together, and then we configured the alarm to run or to evaluate itself every minute. And then we set a threshold for log messages coming in that match that metric to be greater than 4. Then we set that alarm under some additional configurations to match 3 consecutive periods of evaluation. So that meant that we would be looking for at least 5 log messages to come in that match that particular filter, and we would need to see that come in over 3 consecutive 1-minute evaluation periods. Lastly, we ended up tying back our alarm to our SNS topic and configured it to make sure it would send an email alert back to the email address that we provided. And then once that was done, we went over to the AWS CLI. We used some manual commands to put the alarm into a triggered state. We verified that we saw that in the CloudWatch console, and then also verified that the email ended up coming into the email account that we had provided earlier. So pretty cool stuff. Not too hard. A lot of steps, but none of it was really all that difficult. Hopefully this was useful to you. This is great if you're learning about AWS in general, if you're practicing for the System Architect Associate exam, or you're like me and you're practicing for the SysOps Admin Associate exam. Leave me some comments, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that other good stuff. We got more AWS content coming to you soon. Go get at it, and we will talk soon. All right, bye.